Hey everyone, in the video that we're sharing with you today, I think it's one of my favorite videos that we are putting out for you. And what it is teaching you really how to, with partnerships, strategically to be able to partner with that right person, whether you have the money or if you have the time. There's so many different moving parts into apartment investing, and there's a lot of ways to be involved. And so, yeah, if you don't have money, you're good. If you don't have time, you're good. There's a way to do this business. And today with Anthony Chara, who's going to come on, you're actually going to learn all the different parts involved in closing on a deal like 100 units. Anthony's done thousands of doors himself. And you know what's cool? He's put in less than $50,000 of his own money. So without further ado, let's get right into the video so you can learn how you can partner with other people strategically to own thousands of doors sooner than later.
Something in 6 seconds that would get people's attention. That's what he said, right? Multifamily, multimillionaire. How's that? Does that get your attention? Yeah. We set? We ready? We got all kinds of cameras. I feel like I'm on TV or something. I got a live stage here. So one of the things I talked to Adam about, I said, what do you want me to present? Because I think I did one of his lunch meetings a few months ago, about 4 or 5 months ago. And I did my normal presentation that I do to tell people about apartments and how to analyze them and that kind of stuff. And he said, well, what else you got since you did that one already? And I said, well, another one I have is on how to structure deals. Now, keep in mind, after I told him that what I could do is teach people how to structure deals, I then asked him how much time I had. And he said about 30 to 40 minutes. And I said, okay, well, just so you know, I'm going to get into it very quickly here because this is actually about a 2 to 3 hour presentation. So I may not be able to get all the detail in that you want to hear, but I will stick around and answer all of your questions. That's one of the things that I do at every presentation I go to. I will stay here until all of your questions are answered. Is that fair? Yes. Fair? Yes. Excellent. So let's get rocking and rolling. First off, I have a bonus for you. How many of you have ever heard of a guy named John Burley? One person who's going to his boot camp at the end of the month. John Burley teaches people how to invest in real estate and that kind of stuff. And it was kind of interesting. I met him in St. Kitts a couple months ago, and he was talking about how one of his techniques to find good residents is actually to go to the resident's house before he would let them move into one of his properties. And he would find an excuse. Something on the lease wasn't signed, or an I wasn't dotted, or a T wasn't crossed. And either he or one of his assistants would then go in, and it would give them a chance to kind of look around their unit. And he said one of the things he would do is, in order to see most of it, either the house or the apartment that they're living in now, is he would ask to use the restroom because it was a really long drive. And they'd say something like, oh yeah, it's over here to the right, and he'd be directionally challenged, so he'd automatically go into the left and then go, oh, that's right, you said the right, because that way he could see everything on the left and then see everything on the right to see how well they took care of the property. And it just was perfect timing because a friend of mine actually posted this picture that I'm about to show you on Facebook. And I said, this is perfect. So this is what I call a Burley bonus. Instead of just looking at the house and looking at the interior, you need to find an excuse to open up the refrigerator door. You need to look inside the refrigerator, because how many of you would like a resident and would let them move into your unit after you found this in the refrigerator? I tried to clean it up a little bit, but this is actually a beer that they sell in Australia. And it actually is called, yes, F the Rent. So if you had a resident, you guys don't want residents like that have that kind of beer? No? I didn't think so. Just a little bonus. All right. Quick question for you. What do these 1,800 doors have in common? Me. What about me?
You didn't put a penny in.
I didn't, well, I can't say I didn't put a penny. I put a little bit in. But I'll tell you right now, these 1,800 units, yes, the doors open, yes, they close, yes, they have locks, yes, they have hinges. It's usually the types of answers that I get. I partnered with other people on every single one of these purchases. Every single one. When I first started up, I had experienced partners because I didn't have any experience. Even now, today, I partner with money partners, people that give me money to invest in my deals and the deals of my students. And I have credit partners, people that are willing to sign on the loan so that I don't have to. They're willing to take that risk in exchange for a piece of the deal. And I just have to give them a little piece of the deal or a big piece of the deal and have a conversation with them, see how much they want. So what I want to do very quickly is to kind of go you through and show you the anatomy of the deal and some of the different people that you might want to consider to have in your deals. So very quickly about me, started in 93, just doing single family homes. In about 2003, from about 93 to 2003, just did single family homes, buy and hold, because that's all I knew. I didn't know you could do wholesaling, fixing, and flipping, or anything else. Met a couple mentors in the early 2000s. Robert Allen was one, another guy named Ron down in Lone Tree who was buying apartments. And I learned from them how to do wholesaling, fixing and flipping, short sales, apartments, and all kinds of stuff. I learned very quickly that I didn't like wholesaling and fixing and flipping because it was a job. Literally, it was a job from beginning to end. You go out, you find it, you finish it, you make a chunk of money, and then you're back down looking for another job. Then you go out and find something else, you get a chunk of money, and you go out and find another one. It was a job every single time. What happens when you're not doing deals? When you're not doing those deals, what happens? You're not making money. More importantly, here, let's give you some sound effects, see if this helps out. You ready? Bloop, bloop, bloop. I learned very, very quickly that I just traded one job for another job. Got into apartments, liked the fact that the paychecks kept coming in. They were bigger checks, more cash flow, and have been doing that pretty much full time since 2004. I still own single family homes as well. So I'm not suggesting that you stop, even though we're at the Denver Apartment Network, I'm not suggesting that you stop investing in single family homes because there are reasons that you want to have them. These are a few of my properties all around the country. I don't actually have any apartments in Denver. They're all scattered around through Kansas, Iowa, Florida, Texas, Nevada, Arizona. These are just some of the properties. Matter of fact, this actually here is a multi-unit. This is in the country of Belize. And I have to go check on this one a couple times a year. It's a terrible situation, but I have to go check on it. If you guys want to learn anything about international investing, you can talk to me about that as well too. So as you can see, there's single family homes as well as apartments all over the country pretty much from coast to coast. One of the other things that I realized too is I like to actually teach other people how to be successful doing apartments and buying real estate in general. So I started teaching in 2006, learned that I love doing it, I love teaching people how to be successful. I also use the analogy that it's like teaching a kid how to ride a bike. If you've ever taught somebody how to ride a bike or you've ever learned how to ride a bike, that split second that you realize that nobody's holding onto the handlebar, nobody's holding onto the back seat, and you're out there doing it all by yourself. I get goosebumps when my students send me emails or call me up to tell me that they just closed on their first multifamily. And that's one of the reasons I keep doing this. So this may seem kind of obvious here, but one of the things you need to consider is how much of the deal do you actually have to give out between yourselves and your potential partners? Excellent answer. And the rest of you didn't get that. It's 100%. You only have 100% to give out. That's it. How many of you have ever seen the movie or the stage play The Producers? Anybody see it? You guys seen it? What's the premise of the movie is these guys decided that they were going to try and bilk these old women out of their fortunes. They were widows. They didn't have anything else to do with their money. So they devised this plan. They were going to create this play that was going to be so horrible that it was going to lose money and close in the first week. Now, why is that a good plan for them? Because they went out and they talked about 10 or 15 or 20 women, and they basically said, we're going to get half the take, you're going to get the other half. And then they would invest these huge sums of money so that they could produce this play. Well, here's the producers. If you haven't seen the play, it's actually two Jewish writers, two Jewish producers, who are producing a play called Springtime for Hitler. Do you see the problem here? They wanted it to be so bad that it was going to fail. The problem was it was so bad, it was hilarious, and it was a success. And then, of course, hilarity ensues at that point going forward in the movie because now they're trying to figure out how do they get out of this mess that they've created for themselves. There is no funny business when it comes to doing deals and structuring deals with your apartment deals. There's no stage play, there's no movie. You only have 100%. That's it. So don't get creative and try and give out more than 100%. Some of the things you need to understand are the different roles that you might have to have in your particular deals. Each deal has specific needs, and not everybody gets the same cut. Don't assume that everybody gets 5% or everybody gets 10%. Everybody gets a portion equal to what they're doing and their value to the deal. That's it. And not every deal needs every piece that I'm about to put up here on the screen. So first off, out of that whole deal, one of the things you need to pay or compensate is the finder. Who found the deal? Typically, that's going to be you. A lot of times, it's going to be a broker. And a broker doesn't need a piece of the deal. The broker's generally getting commission, aren't they? Brokers are getting commission, so you don't have to worry about cutting them on a piece of pie. But if you have a really good broker who keeps bringing you deal after deal after deal, maybe what you want to do is incentivize them and give them a small piece of your next one. Depending on who found the deal and how valuable the deal is, 1 to 5% is usually a pretty good amount. The second part is a negotiator. How many of you would consider yourselves to be good, shrewd negotiators? Raise your hands. About half. So the other half of you, did you see the people that raised their hands? Those of you that are shrewd negotiators, raise your hands again. If you didn't raise your hand, look around the room. You might want to partner with someone who has their hand up, because they might be able to save you tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars on a deal if they can negotiate a better deal for you. What should they get for that? Generally, based on their performance, maybe about 1 to 3% of the overall deal. The next one is an asset manager. This is not the property manager. The asset manager actually oversees the property manager. They're the ones that make sure the property manager is putting in the right people. They're making sure that the property manager is doing the reports on time every single month. They also interface with the management team. They want to make sure the management team knows what's going on out at the property, because that's what the asset manager is supposed to do. Filter all the things that come from the property manager, inform the management team, and then of course also interface with all of the investors. They should also be interfacing with the CPA. So make sure the tax returns and everything revolving around the taxing and bank accounts and all those things are done on time and accurately. There's a couple different ways you can compensate an asset manager. One way is to just pay them based off of the income that they collect from the property, usually somewhere between 1 and 3%, depending on the amount of money that's coming in. Sometimes you want to give them a little bit more of an incentive, though, and so what you can do is actually give them a piece of the deal. I have one student down in Abilene. His property manager was doing such a great job for him. She was cranking up the income. She was getting in great residents. They had very little turnover. She was controlling the expenses. So what he did is the next deal that he went out and bought, he actually gifted her 5% of his next deal because he was that grateful for the work that she had done on several other deals that he had purchased in Abilene. Now, one of the downsides that you can have is, let's say you decide to give your property manager an equity stake as opposed to just paying them based off the income. Let's say something happens, because we've had that happen with property managers before, where property managers are doing a great job and then all of a sudden something changes in their life and the next thing you know, they're not the same. Things start going by the wayside. They're not paying as much attention to things as they should. And so what happens is now you have to get rid of them. Well, if you have to get rid of an asset manager because they're no longer performing to your expectations and you gave them a piece of the equity, how do you get that equity back from them? Can you get that equity back from them? So that's why a lot of people, when they're paying their asset managers, they typically only pay them based off the income that's generated. But there is another alternative. You could give them a piece of the equity as well, and that's one of the reasons I want to put it up there. Another thing you can do is, if you do need to get rid of them, you can have your attorney write into your operating agreement something called a clawback provision. A clawback provision allows you to take that ownership back, either some of it or all of it, if they're not performing to your expectations. Another one is a syndicator. Quite a few of you said in your 6-second spiel that you were syndicators. How many of you are syndicators? Raise your hands again. Okay, so about 10, 12 people are syndicators. Guess what? You should be getting a piece of the deal because you're syndicating the deal as well. You're the one who's putting it together. You're basically the orchestra conductor. You're the one who's making sure that everybody plays nice together. You're the one that's finding the money partners, working with the attorneys, the accountants, the real estate agents, anybody and everybody that is involved in your deal to make sure everything goes as smoothly as possible. And those of you that are syndicators, does everything go as smoothly as possible? John, you're lying. I can tell. His lips are moving. John is being very sarcastic because he knows very well that deals, there's always going to be a bump or a glitch somewhere along the line. So syndicators are there to make sure that they smooth everything out. Based on, since this is typically your deal as a syndicator, you can pretty much write your own check. So generally you're going to get between about 5 and 10% for the syndication portion. The next one is experience. Now, depending on the lender that you're talking to, some lenders, if you have deep pockets, they don't care if you have any experience or not. If you have deep pockets, they'll loan you whatever money you need for your deals, because they know if you fail, they're going to come after you to get the deficiency if there is a deficiency. Other lenders, most lenders, do care that you have experience. And if you don't have the experience you need to get a deal done, guess what? You might have to partner with someone else in this room who has the experience to help you get to where you want to go. Does that make sense? Am I talking too fast? Just right? Awesome. Another big one is a credit partner. I mentioned earlier that I have credit take the risk for me. Now, one of the things that you need to understand, and a lot of people don't, is there are people out there that will teach you that one of the ways that you can stay out of an issue is by getting a non-recourse loan. Guess what? Non-recourse loans are not non-recourse loans. In case you think non-recourse loans means that they can't come after you, they can only come after the property, you would be sorely mistaken. So make sure before you start going out and buying properties and getting loans that you understand the true definition of a non-recourse loan. Within those loans, there are what are called carve-outs or bad boy clauses that says you're going to take care of the property in a certain way. You're not going to defraud the bank. You're going to make your payments on time as long as the money's there. And you're not going to make a choice between paying yourself and your investors over paying your monthly statement, your monthly balance. Because if you're not going to make your monthly payment, and you choose to pay yourself, then go to the bank and say, well, sorry, we don't have any money to pay you, guess what? The bank's not going to go for that. And the bank will then turn that into a recourse loan. So understand what you need to qualify for the loan too. Another big thing that you need to qualify for the loans, generally you have to have a net worth equal to the loan balance. So if you're buying $1 million property and getting a 75% loan, which is $750,000, you or the credit partner or credit partners, because lenders will allow you to have multiple credit partners, you need to have a net worth equal to or greater than the loan balance. Generally, what I do when I go out to my credit partners, I'll go out to 4 or 5 at a time, and I'll send them a bunch of documentation. I'll say, here's a great deal that we're working on. Are you interested in being the credit partner? And if so, what piece of the pie would you like? I let them tell me what piece they want. And I've had people come back and tell me they wanted anywhere from 4% to 25%. Now, I don't necessarily just go to the one that's at 4% either, because I've learned my lesson. I had one guy years ago told me he only wanted 2%. Now, by the time we were done working through the deal, he ended up with 7%, which was still a fair amount. But what I also found out is that he also wanted to be the asset manager. And at 7% and wanting to be the asset manager, I was fine with that because it kept me from signing on the loan and bearing that risk or the potential risk for the property. The downside is that even though he had a lot of experience, he thought he had a lot of experience. And he would not listen to anybody except himself. And we ran into problems on a couple properties that I partnered with him on, and he would not listen to anybody except himself. Unfortunately, we actually ended up losing one of those properties because he didn't listen. He wasn't taking care of the property the way that he should have been taking care of it. He wasn't repairing the roofs the way they should have been done. He wasn't painting the buildings when they should have been painted. And eventually the bank came in and told him he had to do it. This is one of your carve-outs. You have to maintain the property the way the bank specifies it. And in his case, he didn't do that. And the investors were not going to put more money into the property. And guess what? We ended up losing that one. Now, fortunately, we had made quite a bit of money on the property to begin with, and our investors got most of their initial investment back, but they didn't get it all back. He's one of the creditors on that loan. Or, sorry, credit partner on that loan. He is. Guess what the bank's doing? Going after him. Guess what? It was a non-recourse loan. Yeehaw! Another thing you may want to have in consideration is a rehabber. Somebody that's going to actually be overseeing the property. Now, a lot of you may want to just have somebody like a general contractor take care of the property and do the rehab work. That's fine. There's a lot of property managers that will take care of the property. They'll actually oversee all the construction and make sure everything's going the way that it's supposed to go. But you may want to have someone who knows more about the process actually oversee or partake in the rehabbing, depending on where the property is located. Matter of fact, Dave, wave your hand, Dave. Dave does a lot of that. He actually does that for not only his own properties, but he does it for other people as well. And so Dave actually got a big chunk of a deal that we did in Texas about 3 years ago. Matter of fact, that one's going extremely well. We just found out on that one we're refinancing it. The appraisal, we bought it for just under $2.8 million. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to tell you because it's actually coming up here. It's one of the examples I'm going to show you. So if you're hiring a general contractor, you just pay them a fee and they're out of the deal. But if you want somebody to have, again, more incentive to do a good job, you might want to give them a piece of the deal to be a rehabber. That way they're partaking in not only the cash flow, but the equity buildup that's going to be part of that property later on down the road. Your property manager, I already mentioned earlier that one of my students gave his property manager a piece of the deal because he was very, very happy with the work that she did. You could, again, incentivize the property manager by not just paying them their standard monthly fee, but actually give them a piece of the deal. That way, it's now their property, not your property, if that makes sense. They're more likely to do a better job. Again, you might have to put that clawback provision in there because you may have to get something back from them or their ownership stake if they're not performing the way that they were at the beginning. That one's usually about 1% to 3%. Another one is sweat equity. You might have people that you know that don't have any money, they don't have any experience, they don't have any credit, but they want to be a piece of your deal. Maybe some of you have kids that want to be a piece of the deal. So what's a great way to bring them in and give them a piece of the deal? Put them to work. Have them be a sweat equity partner. Maybe they could go out with the rehabber and actually do some of the work on the property. Or they could help you with some of your due diligence. There's a lot of due diligence that you need to go through on your multifamily property to make sure that you're buying them correctly and not getting screwed by the seller. There's a lot of sellers out there that hide information. Sometimes they hide it on purpose. Sometimes they hide it by accident because they didn't realize that they needed to give it to you, or they just conveniently forgot. That person, depending on how much work they do, you could give them between 1% and 10% of the deal. Another one is the money raiser. This is very, very important that you listen to this part. If you fell asleep through the other first 9, you need to pay attention for this one. This is extremely important because you cannot just have anybody be a money raiser. You can't just go to somebody in the room and say, hey, can you help me raise money for my deal? You or they could end up in jail. So please pay attention. First off, the person that is raising money either needs to have a securities license or they need to be part of the deal. Got it? They need to have a securities license or they need to be a part of the deal. So if I went to Adam, or if Adam came to me and said, Anthony, can you help me raise money for my deal? I would say, no, because I don't have a securities license. But if you said, but Anthony, can you help me raise money for our deal? Cha-ching. Maybe, as long as I like the deal. He could do that with anybody here in the room. You could get a piece of the deal. But it's also very important that you understand the amount that you get cannot be a percentage of what you raise, because that also looks like a commission to the SEC. So an example, if Adam came to me and said, Anthony, for every $100,000 you raise, I'll give you 1% equity. That's a commission, because if I raise $350,000, how much is Adam going to give me? 3.5%. But if I only raise $250,000, how much would Adam give me? 2.5%. You see how it looks like a commission? Don't do that. So there's a couple different ways that you can raise money from other people or with other people's help. So if Adam has a great deal or anybody from Blue Spruce has a great deal and you know somebody who has money, what you can do is you can just introduce them to Blue Spruce and say, hey, guess what? I know this person over here has money. I know you've got a great deal. Adam, meet Bob. Bob, meet Adam. And that's it. You get out of the way. Now, Adam or anybody else in here, if you're doing a deal, you can pay that person a finder's fee or a referral fee. But guess what? It has to be the same amount. It doesn't matter if somebody invested $25,000, $50,000, or $100,000. You need to leave it set no matter how much somebody invests. Because if you raise it with the higher dollar amounts, guess what that looks like? It looks like a commission, and then you could get in trouble. So don't do that. The other way to do it, as I mentioned earlier, is Adam could partner with you if you help raise money, But he gives you amount up front. He says, okay, we need to raise 500,000 bucks. If you're going to help me, I'm going to give you this percentage. Now, one of the things Adam could do, and I would recommend to Adam and anybody else in here, is you need to talk to a very, very good SEC attorney. Don't just wing it. By the way, the worst thing you can do is take someone else's documents and copy them. I don't know how many times I've seen that on Bigger Pockets where somebody says, hey, does somebody have an SEC offering or an operating agreement that I could use because I need one for my own deal? Don't do that, guys. Number one, that's copyright infringement. You're actually stealing. You're stealing from the attorney that put that document together, number one. Number two, you have no legal reason to do that. You have no legal backing. If you actually have an SEC attorney write up the document for you and something goes wrong, their butt's now on the line. They need to come help you fix it. If you do it because you copied it, there's no net. There's no safety net for you to fall into. You are in deep trouble. Make sure you get good legal counsel if you're going to be raising money from other people. Have I made myself clear? Were you paying attention? Is the thing still on? Just check it. Okay. So here's the other thing you could do potentially. This is why I recommend you talk to a good SEC attorney. I told you a couple times earlier about the clawback provision. So maybe what you could do is give somebody a percentage of the deal, but if they don't raise their target number, maybe there's a way that you could claw back and get some or all of that money back, or that percentage back. Does that make sense?
Yes.
By the way, I like questions because I love feedback, so that's the reason I keep asking.
So my question is on the callback provision, you can't have that be conditional.
So the question is, you can't have the clawback amount be part of the amount that they're going to raise, or the amount that you gave them?
So you can't just sort of do a backdoor, like you get $1 million, we give you 10%, but you only get 500,000.
So if you do $1 million, you get 10%, but if you didn't do that, we claw, let's say you only raise 500,000, we claw back and then you only get 5%?
Yeah.
But my understanding is that is kind of how it works, but because you're doing it in reverse, it's okay. But I'm not an attorney. You need to talk to an SEC attorney to confirm that. By the way, is anybody in here an SEC attorney? Is anybody in here with the SEC? My understanding is they're supposed to say so. If you ask the question, they're supposed to say, yes, I am. But anyway, I have nothing to hide here anyway. So, all right. So depending on how much money they raise for you or how much help you need from them, you might give them somewhere between 3 and 10% of the deal. So let me ask you another question. What's left over? What haven't we talked about yet? If you said investors, some of you said investors and money, give yourselves a round of applause. Yes, investors. Now, one thing I want you to understand here. If you notice, this is all nice and neat, and it's all multicolored, multifaceted, and everything over here is the same percentage of 50% combined, and over there is 50%. That's not how it works. This is just a display to show you all the different pieces of the pie. There's nothing that says your investors have to get 50%, and there's nothing that says each one of these people gets the same amount of equity. It's all totally up to you. I gave you a bunch of different ranges that you can use, and you don't even need all these different people. So, without investors, a lot of your deals won't get done. Matter of fact, you might not get any deals done if you don't have any investors. So one of the things you also need to understand too is how much return do you want to give your money partners? Do you guys have any idea what kind of returns you want to give your money partners? Double digits.
Whatever they ask for.
Whatever they ask for. So let me tell you one thing that I do. Years ago, I would go out and I would figure out the deal and I would go tell my investors what I was going to give them. I learned there's an easier way to do it because a lot of people don't want what I was going to give them. They were okay with less. Would you be okay giving people less return if they wanted it? I started asking people, instead of telling people about the deal and telling them the types of returns they were going to get, I would go to people and say, I got this great deal or all these great deals, here's all the ones that we've done in the past, and I get excited about it, and then people inevitably turn around and say, hey, you got any other deals? I'm interested in investing. I get an extra 100 grand, 200 grand, 250 grand, 500 grand, I'll invest. Do you have any other deals? And I'll say, well, yeah, actually, I might have some coming up here in the next month or so. Great, what kind of returns can I get? And I would immediately turn around and say, what kind of returns are you looking for? Because if you tell me what kind of returns you're looking for, if the deal doesn't meet your criteria, I'm not going to bring it to you and waste your time. And you'd be surprised. When I first started up 10, 12, 14 years ago doing deals, I was giving people 12% return. Because that enticed people to get into the deals, or so I thought. And then I learned a valuable lesson, started asking. And I actually had one gentleman call me up and he said, yep, I'm interested. My wife and I just retired. We sold the business. I got $500,000 to invest. His daughter referred him to me because she had been to my classes. And he called up and we had a nice conversation. Hello? We had a nice conversation. And he did the same thing. He said, what kind of returns can I get if I invest with you? And I said, what kind of returns do you want? I'd be happy with about 5 to 5.5%. So here's my expectation of giving people 12. Where did he come in at? Less than half. So now what I do is I ask people, what kind of returns are you looking for? Now, even though I say that, you still have to have some idea of the types of returns that you can give to your investors and how much that's going to impact your deals. So, should we take a look at a couple deals?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's one deal. This is down in Longview, Texas. This is 100 units called Colony Park. There's the beautiful sign. If you notice, the sign actually says something different. It was called Pentwood. Isn't that a beautiful sign right here? Plywood, stenciled lettering on it. You can't even read the address. Fortunately, you can read the phone number down here. The really itty-bitty, teeny-tiny print. So that's probably why they put this sign up here. Here's the new sign. After Dee Dee bought this property, she put on a really big sign. Very, very nice. Would you like that one better, or do you like this one? You like that one better? Nice sign. So here's what Dee Dee did. These are all the numbers for the deal. What I want you to concentrate on for the time that we have is the cash flow. The cash flow on this property was projected to be about $227,000. Now what we have to figure out is how much do we have to come up with for the down payment and closing costs. In this case, also deferred maintenance. So Dee Dee raised $1 million for this particular deal. It's going to generate $227,000 in cash flow. She had to raise $1 million to and hard dollars out. This takes nothing into account regarding appreciation, depreciation, or even your loan paydown. Just straight hard dollars in, hard dollars out. So if you take the cash flow, how much is our cash flow? 227. Divided by our cash out of pocket was $1 million, equals our cash on cash return. So in this case, 227,000 divided by $1 million is 22.7%. Do you think there's a little bit in there that she can use to give to some money partners and credit partners and experienced partners and everybody else? Yeah, there's plenty to go around. So the first thing she wanted to do is she wanted to figure out, okay, trick question here. How much of the deal is available to split up? I know, I went too far. 100%, you got it. These are the different people that Dee Dee needed, she knew she needed to bring into her deal. She needed a credit partner or credit partners. She needed experienced partner, money raiser, rehabber, asset manager, and investors. Those are the different pieces. So the first thing she did is she wanted to begin with the end in mind. So she wanted to figure out if her target was 8%. She wanted to have an idea of what she thought investors might be looking for as a minimum. She said, okay, if I give them 8%, is there enough to go around? Well, what is 8% of 22.7%? Now, sometimes it gets convoluted because now we're talking about percentages of percentages. So in this particular case, if her target goal, without mentioning this to her investors, was to get them an 8% return, she needed to see how much of the deal she would need to give up to get them a minimum of that 8% of just the cash on cash. So what you do is it's actually pretty easy when you know how to do it. You take 8%, which was her target, divide it by the cash on cash return that she projected of 22.7. That means Dee Dee would have to give up 35% of her deal to get them that 8% return. How much does that leave left over for her? 65%. But in this case, now Dee Dee goes the other way. So one way she goes and she says, okay, if I want to get my investors 8%, how much do I have to give up? That's 35. That leaves 65 left over. Now she's going to go out to all of her partners. Her credit partners, her experienced partners, her money raisers, and her rehabbers, and the asset manager. And what she did is she asked each one of them what they wanted to come into the deal. And now Dee Dee's actually a couple of these. Dee Dee is one of the credit partners. She's also raised the money, and she's also the asset manager. So she gets pieces of all this stuff, and then there's other people in here. She actually has 4 credit partners on this particular deal to get the deal done. She has 2 experienced partners. She has 2 money raisers, and then 1 rehabber. Hi, Dave. So total was 45%. So that leaves how much left over? 20% left over, because she knew she had 65 to play with. When she went and asked everybody what they wanted and what she wanted, it came out to 45%. That leaves 20% extra. Guess what she decided to do with the 20% that was extra? She did not throw a party. She wanted to be overly generous to her investors, so what she did is she actually gave that back to the investors. So instead of them getting 35% to get that 8% return, she actually gave them 55% of the deal. Do you think her investors were a little happy? Yeah. Very happy. As a matter of fact, here's the good news. Dee Dee ended up on this particular deal. She actually did invest some money in the deal, but so she gets, as a money partner, and one of her credit partners also put in money, they also get a share of this money here based on how much they invested themselves. But her and her credit partner also share this amount, plus the other amounts that Dee Dee gets. So Dee Dee's getting 16.5% of just this part, plus her percentage in here based on the amount of money that she actually put in as well. Now, here's the good part. Getting a new loan, a new Freddie Mac loan on the property. The new appraisal bought it for $2.8 million. The new appraisal came in at $4.6 million. Do you think? I thought that was a question. I guess it was somebody else.
After 3 years?
Pardon?
3 years?
After 3 years, yes. 3 years, yep. So Dee Dee's been busting her butt on that property. She's working with the property manager. She lives in Denver. She's working with the property manager who's down in Longview, Texas, working with her credit partners and talking with me as her coach and going through and making sure that everything's running at optimal performance, and apparently it is. So, by the way, don't share that with the investors. Because so the question was, are we going to pull some money out so we can reinvest it someplace else? Probably not. Because of that particular area of the country, it's very susceptible to oil and gas. And so we've actually had a couple issues where we've had some higher vacancy because there's one big employer there that does some type of piping for oil derricks. And they laid off a whole bunch of people, and that really impacted the occupancy of the property, but now it's been built back up over the last year. So my recommendation, quite frankly, especially since we have a lot of investors, would be just to take out enough to refinance the property. She's also going to take out enough to give the investors half of their money back, and then she's going to take out a little bit more to do a little bit more deferred maintenance on the property. But we're not going to max it out to the full 75%. Okay? Trying to be conservative. Because you guys all know what happened in 2006 and 2007 and 2008, yes? Yeah, I don't want a repeat of that. So my advice to anybody would be just take out what you need, pay it down as a little bit faster than worrying about taking more out. Because I had one student who unfortunately was doing single-family homes before he met me. 42 times he did this. Bought a property, put some money into it, the value of the property went up, rehabbed it. After he rehabbed it, went over to this one, did it again, 42 times. Guess what happened in 2007? Lost everything, because everything was over leveraged. All right. Any other questions on Colony Park? You guys learned anything? Okay. Here's another one. Midtown Garden, 60 units. By the way, Dave, if these numbers are wrong, let me know, because I was going off of memory when I put this together. This is one that Dave and I were supposed to close last month. You have a question on this one or Colony Park?
Before you go on the previous one, are you setting aside a percentage for capital reserve?
Yes, we're setting aside, well, not a percentage, but a dollar amount. So Dee Dee's setting aside somewhere between $300 and $400 per unit per year for capital. All right. This one we were supposed to close on, actually I said last month, but now that we're in April, we were supposed to close on it in February. Now it looks like we're going to close sometime next week. Right, John? That John.
Doesn't have to.
It's a what?
We'll get the app contract.
So this particular one of the reasons it's taken so long is 18 of the 60 units have a HAP contract. HAP is HAP, Housing Assistance Program, or Housing Assistance Provider. And HUD needs to approve the ownership group to make sure that we're not derelicts and convicts and money laundering and that kind of stuff. And of course, it's a government entity, so you know how long it takes the government to get things done. So we have no idea when they're going to approve this thing, but we've given them all the information they want. They're just sitting there twiddling their thumbs, and we're trying to get this whole thing closed. But let me tell you about this property. So Dave found this property because this is a nice property. Brick. By the way, it's got 2-year-old roofs, 2-year-old siding, and 2-year-old heating and air conditioning units. Furnaces, air conditioners. The fire department came out and saw that some of these upper windows 2.5 years ago had the through the window air conditioning units. And they said, oh, you can't do that. That's an emergency egress. You're blocking the egress for people to escape. They made them pull them all out. Well, down here in the lower level, these little boxes here, this is where the units used to be for the first level. What happens in the summertime to heat? Does it go up or down? It goes up. So when the air conditioners are down here running full blast, does the cool air go up? No. So these were all really, really hot. So what the owner of the property did is they went in, pulled out all of the air conditioning and heating units, and put in brand new furnaces and air conditioners. This is the purchase price, including the only thing we have to do to it really is $160,000 of new windows. Here's the operating expenses. Again, we'll get down to cash flow. There's our cash flow at $101,000 a year. Now, on this particular one, we already raised $600,000. We had that a couple months ago. $600,000 divided into $101,000, 17% cash-on-cash return. Again, that doesn't even include the other upsides for equity buildup, right? Paying down the mortgage, the depreciation that we can pass through to the investors. It doesn't even include the appreciation from raising rents and controlling expenses. 17%. So again, Dave looked at this and said, well, these are all the different people that I need in the deal. Let's begin with the end in mind. If he wanted to get an 8% target to his investors, how much would he have to give up? Same exact formula. You take whatever your target number is, divide it by the cash-on-cash return. In this case, Dave would have to give up about 47% of the deal to satisfy his investors, which leaves a little over 50% for Dave and his team. So again, in this case, Dave went to his partners and said, I'm going to give you this. I don't know why, but he did. It's okay, it worked out. And he said, here's what I'm going to do. Credit partner will give you 10%, experienced partners will give you 10%, money renters 8%, sweat equity 8%. He actually has a couple of students of mine that are working for him that have time, but they didn't have money to invest. So he said, if you do this, 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 and this, I'll give you a percentage of the deal. And now they're doing a lot of that stuff that Dave doesn't want to do. Even though we might have the time, it's like me, right? Why would you do something if you don't like doing it? Go find somebody else who's willing to do it and pay them to do it. So that's what he's doing. And then, of course, the asset manager is going to get 2%. So in this case, there's 38% left over. But guess what? How much did we say he was going to have from the last slide? 52. About 52 to 53%, right? So guess what Dave is doing with his extra money? His extra percentage. What are you doing with the extra percentage, Dave? Yeah, you gave it to your money partners. Put it in the bank. By the way, I know my numbers are off slightly because I believe you're actually only giving 60% to the money partners, correct?
Yeah, the purchase price is about $200,000 less.
Well, but I did the purchase price included the extra money for the windows and stuff. So in this particular case, this is actually 60%, and I know that he took the extra 2% and he divvied it up here someplace, but that just happened, I think, last week or something. So, Dave, you're getting 10%, right? Did I have that correct?
Yes.
You're getting 10%? So Dave's getting 10% of the deal. By the way, Dave, how much money do you have in the deal? None? What? You have no money in the deal and you're getting 10% of the deal?
Yeah.
Wow. So it is possible to put no money into a deal and get a part of a deal. How many times have you done that, Dave?
About 12.
About 12 times. So those of you that are thinking that if you don't have any money, you don't have any credit, you don't have any experience, the 1,800 units that I own, I've partnered with other people. Somebody said that I put money into them. I put very, very little money. I probably have less than $50,000 total in all the different deals that I've done on apartments. Really. And that's usually only like 5,000 here, 10,000 there for something that needs to happen to the property or to the legal documents or something like that. That's it. Now, if you have your own money and you have your own credit and you have your own experience, it is easier and faster to get deals done. There's no doubt about it. But don't let that hold you back if you don't. Get the education that you need. Learn how to do what you need to do. And then start doing this. Start networking with other people that are like-minded. That's exactly what Adam and Bruce are doing. They're going out and they're getting all these people that have like-minded goals that want to invest in apartments. And guess what? You guys have just closed on, what did you say, the 5th and 6th?
Small syndications, we've got 2 closing this month.
2 syndications closing this month. There you go. Okay? Did I mention this is usually about a 3-hour presentation? Any questions on Midtown? Sarah? You have a question on asset management fees?
Because all the other positions are mostly pre-closing, like the things you're doing beforehand, and the asset manager works for years on ongoing management. I probably not on asset management for 2%. Is that usually because it's also a sponsor because it's on other items?
Okay. So let me repeat what she said, and then I think there was a question there. Or maybe it was just a statement. She said, so all the stuff that was listed up here, a lot of this stuff was things that are done ahead of time, but the asset manager, once the deal closes, they're doing a lot of extra stuff. They're constantly involved with the property from that point moving forward, right? So she didn't think she would do that for 2% of the deal. Okay. So there's a couple different ways that you can compensate yourself. So part of it is, you could be getting, in this case, it's 2% of the equity, plus, if it's your deal, you'd also be paying yourself a fee. So this is in addition to the fee that you would be getting to being the asset manager. Does that help? Maybe she doesn't seem convinced. But right, this is just a way of looking at it. Certainly what it comes down to is whether or not your investors are okay with the piece that you're getting. Because you're going to have some investors, when you actually look at the overall deal, right? If we go way back to the beginning, one of the things you need to take into consideration is you can divvy this up any way that you see fit and to what works for you and what works for your investors. If your investors believe in the structure and they think their piece of the pie is big enough for them so that they'll be satisfied, they'll invest with you. They need to invest with you. If they don't think their piece of the pie is big enough, or if they think your piece of the pie is too big for what you're doing, then they won't invest with you. So what does that tell you? It tells you may need to adjust this a little bit. You may need to. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to agree with them or even adjust it because one person doesn't agree with you. It's about getting a consensus from a lot of different investors. If you hear from one investor that their piece isn't big enough or your piece is too big, don't change a thing. But if you start talking to 4 or 5 or 6 and they all have the same impression that their piece is too small and your piece is or your piece is too big, now you may need to either look at modifying it or going and finding a different deal. Okay.
So my question to you is, as you were putting these deals together and not putting in any money, how did you protect yourself from all these people getting involved that somebody wouldn't take the deal away? Right?
Okay, so the question was, if all these different deals that I was doing and I wasn't putting any money into them, how did I protect myself so that they wouldn't take the piece away from me?
Well, in other words, why couldn't somebody else doing sort of off to the side? Kind of like a non-compete and some kind of disclosure, what kind of documents do you provide?
Okay, so the question is, so how did I protect myself? How did I keep somebody else from stepping in and doing what I'm doing?
Yes,
Okay?
the deal away.
Taking the deal away from me. Well, first off, they have it under contract. They control the deal at that point. So we're in control of the deal. We have the legal documents that allow us to control it, and it allows us to go out and raise money and do whatever we need to do to get the deal done. Now, of course, if we can't raise money, we can back out of the deal and hand it back to the seller, and then somebody else can certainly step in. After we buy it, there are provisions within the operating agreement that tells everybody and dictates to everybody how the deal is going to be operated. Who's going to make the decisions? What decisions do you have as a money investor compared to what this decision-making power of the asset manager? In most of our deals, the investors only have 2 votes that they can take. One is whether or not they want to replace the asset manager, and the second vote is whether we sell or refinance the property. That's it. Everything else is dictated right in the operating agreement. It says the asset manager has full carte blanche to do whatever they need to do to operate the business, because that's actually what it is. We don't buy apartments. That may seem like a shock, but we don't buy apartments. We buy businesses that generate a stream of income. And so the operating agreement defines how that business is going to be operated. And that's where we get our protection, through the legal documents. Okay. Okay.
Any advantage to, I'm a builder developer, so is there any advantage to new construction versus, what's the deal?
Is there any advantage to new construction as opposed to buying existing? The answer that we buy is already pre-done. It may be completely vacant, but it's got a roof, it's got floors, it's got walls, it's got everything in it. So, does anybody in here, actually John, you might want to talk to John. John does some development. Talk to him. Does anybody else in here raise your hand if you do development? Vern? And what's your name? Ken? You can talk to Ken too. Okay? Any other questions on anything else? For those of you that want to learn more, if you do want to learn more, these are a bunch of classes I have coming up in Denver. I've got a one-day apartment workshop going to be on Saturday, May 12th. I have my SEC attorneys coming in on Friday, June 1st. And she's going to be teaching one day on how to raise all the money that you need for your deals. Then the 2 days right after that, John, one of my coaches, is going to be doing a 2-day due diligence workshop, June 2nd and 3rd. I have my 4-day apartment boot camp, June 7th through the 10th right here in Denver. Then Dave is going to be doing his value add workshop on July 7th through 8th. And then another coach that I have, Scott McCaig, is going to be doing his deal structuring. A lot of this stuff that I did up here in basically about 40 minutes, he has a 2-day class that goes into this in much more detail with software, spreadsheets, all kinds of stuff that helps you analyze your deals to figure out how you want to split them up. So if you want to learn any more about that, let me know before you leave tonight, because I did mention I will stick around and answer all of your questions. You had your hand up a second ago. The operating agreement is put together by the SEC attorney, yes. She does the operating agreement and what's called the private placement memorandum, which is all the legal mumbo jumbo that talks about how you can raise money, how you can't raise money, and it tells everybody how the investment is going to be operated. Very, very worth the money, well worth the money that you're going to pay somebody to do that. Any other questions? Any other questions?
Tell them about your catamaran trips.
Tell them about my catamaran trip. It's not a catamaran trip. This is a training class. That's the classroom. And these are the students. Well, that's me. Look, no shirt, no jacket. No. The instructor, that's right. Me and my wife teach people on, this is our class for a week. We spend about an hour to an hour and a half every morning in class. Yes, in class. We are going to make it a legitimate business trip. And then there's the classroom. You like the classroom? Nice blue turquoise waters. You can't really see the turquoise waters, but that's one of the classes that we do. So if you're interested in learning more about that, the one for this year is completely sold out. We actually have a waiting list this year, but we've got another one next year, 2019 in September. We'd love to have you join us. It's going to be in St. Martin. It's a great way to spend a week unplugged, but learning with other like-minded people, and we'd love to have you join us. Any other questions? Sarah?
A little bit about how you find the deals and how you screen them.
Can I talk a little bit about how I find the deals and how I screen them? So when I first started up, a lot of the deals that I was finding were coming from me doing the typical thing that most people do, going to the internet and that kind of stuff, going to LoopNet and a bunch of other websites to find deals. And then what I realized is that once you actually close a deal in a particular market, you actually have people come out of the woodwork and call you because they know that you just closed a deal in the market, and then they start bringing you deals. So I said, if that's the case, why don't we do a shortcut? And now what I would do is I would go into the broker's offices before I bought anything in a particular area, and I would start finding the brokers in those areas, in those offices, that actually had the deals. I still go to LoopNet, but what I do now with LoopNet is I go to LoopNet and I want to see who has most of the listings in that particular market where I'm looking to buy. And then I reach out to that broker or those brokers that have most of the listings, and I start creating a relationship with them. Because most of your deals that you're going to get, they're not coming from LoopNet. There are deals out there. I know John's done a couple deals off of LoopNet. A lot of the deals you create. So a lot of people look at LoopNet and say, oh, this is crap. But what you do is you create a deal through your analysis and through your negotiation and create a financing to take a deal that's only making 7, 8, 9, 10% cash on cash return and turning it into one that's in the 15, 16, 20% range. So by going in and actually creating a relationship and building rapport with local brokers in the area where you want to target, that's where you're more likely to get those deals. It's not from you getting on the internet, because I'll tell you what, everybody in here has access to the internet, I'm assuming. Because I've seen some of you are on the internet right now. So how do you get an advantage that other people don't have? Create a relationship and a rapport with the people in the target market. I'm going to reach out to real estate agents that sell the type of property I want to buy. I'm going to talk to property managers that manage the property that I want to buy. I'm going to talk to financiers local in that market that lend on that type of property. And the fourth one I'm going to go to are commercial appraisers in that market. And of course, the other thing you can do too, I highly recommend it. There are real estate groups all across the country. You can go to, there's a website called National REIA, National REIA, or you can go to Meetup, and find Adam's group on there. There are other groups around the country that you can go into and find groups just like this and start networking with people in those meetings that either have properties for sale or know people that are selling those types of properties. Any other questions? Anybody want to put a lay on and grass skirt? Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you, Adam and Blue Spruce, for having me out. You guys are listening. Appreciate it. Thank you. As I mentioned, I'll stick around and answer any other questions that you have and continue to network.